Welcome in, everybody. Cannabiz Conversation, Season 4, powered by our friends at Green Lane Communication. You want to break through the noise. You want to get to the mainstream. You want to be heard, remembered, and seen. Look no further than greenlanecommunication.com. My boy Michael and his team are some of the best in PR business, period, let alone their ultimate focus within the cannabis space. As I said, greenlanecommunication.com. Check them out. We thank them very much for their sponsorship and trust for this season. Today is a fun one, folks. If you don't know today's CEO, by the time we're done, you will, and you will be following him wherever he can be followed, because I think, and I'm not sure, but I think it's probably... he does business in probably the most aggressive, sort of like competitive sector of the cannabis space right now, if I don't want to include hemp beverages, which I don't. So we're going to just talk about pre-rolls today with Kyle Loucks, CEO of RollPros. How are you today, man?
Dude, I'm doing great. You caught me on a great day. It's, it's probably about 86 degrees out here. Summertime in the Northwest, man. I'm on a high right now. So
look, I feel you, man. Here in the Midwest, we got about 75 degrees here in northern Wisconsin. It gets no better in life for me than this, and I enjoy it. I'm glad you're doing the same. Kyle, we like to start these shows out by getting to know people and their relationship with the plant. So what is Kyle's cannabis origin story? Tell us about it.
Yeah. So, well, I've always been... I like to say, I've been an engineer since I was like 8 years old. So I've always been like a little bit of a scrappy builder, always doing like bow and arrows, tree forts, like that kind of stuff as a kid. Got into electronics too, as a kid. Was always taking apart my toys. So I was like a bit of like this, and I'm seeing it now in my kids because I'm like, dang, I was just like him and he's kind of a handful. But it's like, I was always like thinking through problems. I was like a problem solver, like my mom loved it. I'd always fix the vacuum cleaner and like, I was always like tinkering on stuff. And so I'm used to like deconstructing problems in my brain. So like, I'm used to like taking this problem and like fragging it out and being like, all right, how can I piece this thing back together? And in order to do that, you kind of use different perspectives. And man, when I found weed in high school, I was probably like a junior, and oh my gosh, it was out of a pop can. Like, oh my gosh, so dumb. But it was like, it was kind of it was life altering in that I was like, holy cow, this thing that I've been afraid of and scared of my whole life really does allow me to unlock a new perspective. And I freaking loved it. It was like, match made.
It's the aha moment, right? It's incredible. I love this. I'm going to stop you here. There's a couple of things. Pop can. Hey, my first time was out of a foiler boiler, dude. So I don't think there's much difference. I mean, tin and foil, you might have been better off than I was, but I'm hip to it. I love me a good pop can. Again, it's if you can make it happen, you make it happen. The idea of being a problem solver, right? I share that brain set with you. My organization, that I make a living in automotive. Cannabis is a passion of mine and it always has been, but I have a company in automotive that I own for the last 12 years. And that's all we do is someone brings us a problem and we solve it. And it's so exciting to watch, right? And really take things apart and do that. So right when you said perspective, right, that came from cannabis and using different perspectives, it really hit home for me, because that is what I really enjoy about this plan. Is it allows me to be outside of myself when so many people spend a lot of times, maybe a little too deep inside one's mind, and to break out. And I find that the next level of that for me was always mushrooms and, getting into the hallucinogenic part of things and really being able to keep that outer expansion. you get this in high school. You were afraid of it. I circled that. Afraid of it. Kyle,
Well,
is that because you were a dare kid? If you're familiar with the school program, is that what happened here?
yeah. I wish I had the shirt still, man. I
I said
was.
it. I said it on the last episode. I agree, dude. So Dare scared you. See, Dare drove me to drugs. I told the story on the last episode, but it drove me there. I was like, wait, did you say I shouldn't and I can't and it's terrible? I'm like,
Oh,
I'll judge for myself. You know what I'm
yeah.
saying? Like, I'll be the judge. You're not gonna tell me. But it's funny, I was talking with my wife because Kyle, did you grow up in the Pacific Northwest?
Yeah, I'm
Okay.
right around this area. Yeah,
So you grew up in
for
the
sure.
Pacific Northwest. The last guest we had on, he grew up in LA,
Hmm.
and I grew up in the Midwest. I really thought, and it was so silly of me, but I really thought Dare and all that stuff was really just Midwestern, religious kind of put down, on us. I thought all the kids, I figured everyone in the Northwest and West just smoked weed and they grew up with weed and weed was cool. But Kyle was scared as Dare as I was. Wow.
Yeah, dude. Yeah, I mean, it's like they built this up to be like, yeah, as bad as heroin. And you drive by, you drive into Portland, you see the guy on the sidewalk, you're like, oh, he must be on weed. Like, ooh.
I mean, again, no laughing matter, right? This is no
No,
laughing matter,
no.
but it is when you use a tactic of fear like that, right? At that
Totally.
sort of level and the fear mongering of anything, but especially cannabis. Fear mongering in general pisses me off, but the cannabis part even more so because of the association and the lack of understanding about medicinal and where this, the value and historical piece of this plant is. And so for you, Kyle, you find it in high school. What then? What does usage start to look like as you go through your high school into your I won't say college years, but those years when you're at that age? I didn't go to college. There are many who didn't. So in that era, what happens next with your usage and kind of consumption of it?
Yeah, so I mean, also we can go down the cars thing too. I've been a car guy since I was like 14 too. So like, took apart my first car before I could drive.
Yeah, well,
Um,
Kyle, let me not mistake this.
yeah,
I have been selling cars my whole life. I don't know jack shit about fixing them or taking them apart.
okay.
It is a myth to people that they're like, oh, car guy. I'm like, and don't get me wrong, I love cool cars. I own
Yeah.
cool cars. Like I'm into all of that. But as far as how they operate, what they do, not your
Okay.
guy at all. Like, wears a suit, man. Does not. Yeah, for sure. But
Good to know.
but I love. But again, it speaks to the problem solving, right?
Hmm.
If you're willing to
Totally.
pop open the trunk of
Oh,
something or the hood of something and get into it, it speaks to that portion of it. And
so
I
many
think that's what
problems.
propels you. So you say you're an
Yeah.
engineer. My assumption here is that next Kyle goes and becomes one. Is that
Yeah.
the case?
Totally, yeah. So I, went to college. High school was just like fun for me. I didn't do great at getting grades. I was more trying to skip out. But then I got into college, went to Washington State, go Cougs, and I started like getting into physics and I was like, oh, this stuff is clicking. And like, I found that I mean, weed was a motivator in college for me. So I was always like, all right, I got to crush all my homework, got to do all my studying. And then if I do all that, like, all right, I'll roll a joint and I'll have a good evening,
Oh,
like,
well, okay. I'm sorry, man. I got confused because I used to do all that. So when you were building that up, I'm like, damn, Kyle, we're like the same dude. Like I can hide do all that stuff too. What you meant is a reward. See, you can see I didn't go to college, right? You did, so I can see the difference already there. But I like this. So the reward weed for Kyle in college.
yeah, exactly. And but the funny thing is like then like after like I got through the work of college and I got into like the real like building my career, I was tackling kind of these like pretty hard to solve problems, I mean, I worked at a steel mill, I worked at a medical device, implant device. Those were kind of my structural years. And I would bring these problems home and I'd smoke at the end of the day, and like all of a sudden it'd be like click, like holy shit, like that's how we got to do it.
Yeah.
And so it was like I was using it to make myself a better engineer. And it was unlocking this like perspective where I do this whole brainstorm with all the, all the other engineers, and we get all these ideas together, and nothing would really like click. But then I'd get home and get high, and I'd be like, oh shit, click! Like we can like do it just like this, and like I had a few of those like epiphany moments, and I was like, dang, this is like this drug like is now helping fuel my creative ability. And I just kind of leaned into it, and I mean, I was putting out some insane patents that were like blowing people's minds, and I was just like a punk intern. I was like 23. I had this I designed one of the first plastically deformable implants for your rib, and it was kind of like a lot of people were like, "Dad, I don't know if that's possible. I don't think you can do that." And I was just like, "Screw it. I'm gonna do it."
Oh man, I love it, dude. You're speaking my language, man. It's how I
Yeah.
approach everything. My company's name in the car business is called Cannabiz Done Better, and I get a lot of flack for it in the industry. People are always like, "What do you do everything better?" And I'm like, "Yeah." The fact of the
Yeah.
matter is, if it needs being done better, call me, and I will figure out a way to have that be done for you. And so every arm of my business, everything else, it ends with done better. And again, it's one of those things that if you tell me no, dare program. If you tell me it can't happen, big CEO of a company, to me, it's like, great. Like, let's grab a joint. Let's go out into nature. Let's hike this thing out. And that's where I work it out. And I have that same moment where I stress all week in a conversation with a client. Everyone goes back and forth. But then I get out on my own. I get my own time. I'm in nature. I smoke that joint. I'm like, fuck, this is fixed. Like, just go do that. And then, Kyle, I'm sure you run into this, but you come back and you already see the matrix, right? You already have this thing set up, and everyone that you're working with is like, well, no, well, hold on. Can we? And it's like, just stop questioning this. Just go for it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Totally, totally get it. And yeah, we're similar. I had a high school teacher that told me he was a math teacher, and I told him I wanted to be an engineer, and he was just like, Kyle, it's a lot of math in college. I don't think you should do engineering. and and I was like, all right, F you. Like, like,
Yeah,
and it totally like pushed me to like get through it, and now looking back, I'm like, did he know what he was doing? And he actually just like knew that I was kind of that rebellious type. And so I need to go back and circle up with him, because I think he was actually like really smart. And he just knew like if he gave me something to push against, I would push.
And look, and you did, and you were successful in doing so. Look, yeah, I mean, my
Yeah.
mom always makes the joke. I got pretty low grades in math, but I own a data and analytics company, and the two really aren't like you're solving math equations. That's not really. I'm just taking data and just interpreting it at light speed through my own eyes, through my own perspective, and what I've seen in my industry. So it's a little bit different in that way. But I love how you approach it. So you're at the steel mill. You're in the
Yeah.
implant business. How do we enter into the cannabis business, Kyle, in your world?
Well,
Where does that entry point happen for you, man?
yeah, so I had come off, so I worked at HP, Georgia Pacific, and then I was at Meta. So I was working at Oculus with their AR VR headsets. And I kind of was coming off of a high, because I really like I solved a really hard problem for them. And they were trying to move me into management, so I was gonna, my design brain was like basically gonna be put up to retirement. And I was like, like I need a new hard problem. And like the cars that I was working on, they'd all been done. Everybody's swapped everything to every car, so I was kind of like, I can't really innovate in like a fast car. And so I started looking around as like, what's a hard problem to solve? And I also wanted to learn how to code, like to do firmware and software. And all my previous employers were kind of like, I was so proficient in mechanical engineering that they're like, no, we're not going to switch you into like firmware. Like, why would we do that? So I had a little 3D printer at home, and I had a couple of like prototype boards, like little Arduinos. and I was like looking for a hard problem to solve. And that kind of coincided just with the legalization of cannabis in Washington. And I saw this like truly emerging market, and I'm like, so this is a new market. That never happens in a lifetime of like a full new, it's like a whole new like automotive industry or a whole new like shoe industry.
It's
And I was like,
crazy to imagine. I don't think enough people give credit to the size of it, Kyle, in that way. I
oh,
think everyone expects this thing to have steamed ahead because we've known about the plant since the 19 aughts and all these other things. I get all that. And I'm not really a history guy. I don't think I appreciate history enough. I
yeah,
prefer to see what's coming. But to that point, yes, like it's never been seen. Like unless your grandparent of the 1920s is still around and can speak to you about, at 105 years old, about what went on with prohibition. Otherwise, we don't have an example. And I know everyone hates the comparison, but guys, gals, there isn't another one. Okay, so
no,
like even cigs don't have the same like history of like going. They were just cigarettes. They just ended up selling them and making money, and then had to tell you they were killing you. Like it's a whole different story.
well,
So
and
you're seeing an emerging market, and you're thinking to
mhm.
yourself, this is a chance for a fresh start with a fresh opportunity.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's, and to kind of piggyback off what you said is like, this is something that survived prohibition for a really long time, like I feel like even like alcohol and tobacco, like if we just said like, it's illegal, I don't know how many people would like grow it in their backyard and pheno hunt and strain. And I'm
Yeah,
like,
dude. Now you have your home brewers, okay? We all know them. We all have that
yeah,
buddy. Like I get it. Like it's fine. But no, more people I think would be, and that should be our right as U.S. citizens. You should have the right to grow a plant. I don't care what state you live in. If you live
yes.
in this soil, if you live in this, this country, you should have that opportunity. And with all the hemp bill loopholes, I'm still shocked that one didn't find its way through. But at the end of the day, when you talk about that, I agree, dude. I think that people would not if you said booze was illegal, Kyle, the people you might have 1 in 10 friends who turns into your bootlegger beer buddy, who makes it himself, but you wouldn't have. I don't think you'd have craft as much. Like you wouldn't have hard alcohol spirit. I just don't think that people would go through the process of making their own vodka. Like I just don't.
Right.
I don't see it, dude. But I think millions would go through the process of making their own weed.
Totally, totally. And they did. And they did. And like, and man, the level of these growers, they've got PhDs in like in VPD, what's it called? Like organic soil, like native
Composition, the whole 9 yards. Like you
dude.
talk to these people, and I've been fortunate to have them on the show. A+ growers are just incredible people to listen to. A buddy of mine, Trent Hancock, that on LinkedIn, he's an incredible master grower, been doing it a long time, and then he created his own HVAC system, removing the mold, removing all these other complaints, right? And so you see these guys, and you have to have respect of all of that process, while also understanding that legalization and putting it into mainstream has a different adaptation of what this looks like than it does now. So you're breaking into it, and you're, like I said, to kick the show off, with RollPros, you guys this is what, I mean, it's, I think, the most competitive market. Is this of the pre-roll world? Is that overstated in your opinion, Kyle, or does that seem fair?
Oh no, I think it's totally fair. I think it's, we all end up back at flower, like I think that everybody starts with the gummies and the vapes and like, man, but once you hit flower and then you start like finding these different strains and different terpene profiles, like I do feel like pre-rolls is where it's going to, kind of culminate. The one thing though that I think, one of our slogans is like pre-rolls suck. And the reason why we say that is because the majority, like all of the cone technology, you have to dry your material out and you have to pulverize it in order to make it fill this delicate little cone. And so it's you basically have to bastardize your flower. You spent all this time pheno
Yeah.
hunting, growing, drying, curing, and then these companies are like, oh yeah, and then you want your moisture content around like 3 to 5%, which is dry as hell, to make it fill this cone. And I was like, now being a pothead, I'm like, fuck that. Like, I'm sorry for the
Yeah,
language.
no, it's fine. No, it's all good. No, it's all good. No, because I agree.
Yeah,
Like, but I'm a pothead who does not know how to roll joints, does not have that history of doing that. I'm not the one-handed guy. I'm not, someone has to supply that. It's why
yeah,
I'm drawn to pre-rolls, because I like the consumption style. I like the way in, out. I like the public nature. Plus, here in Wisconsin, we have some decrim cities, so I can walk those cities, again, feeling more mainstream about what everyone's seeing, as opposed to me stopping, hitting a glass pipe on the side of the road. You know what I mean? And I get it's optics, but sometimes optics go further than people give them credit for. So yeah, you talk about your slogans. Friends don't let friends stuff cones. Tell me about that.
Oh, dude, I love that one because like, you're at a party and it's like, oh, let's roll up, like, and it was always me. Like, I was always the guy that like, like, oh, I got the touch, and so I'd roll up, and I just like would imagine like if we're in a similar situation like that, like all my crew, and somebody's like, oh, I got this, let me roll up. And they bring out like a cone, like a pre-made cone, and they start like, stuffing it from the top. I'd be like, boom, like, get that shit out of here. Like, roll it like a man, like.
Dude, I'm only laughing because the last time we were on scene at a consumption event, there was somebody selling these like, these pre-cones, right? And they were like all these different flavors and weird. It was like, it had jumped the shark for me personally. And so I had looked at it and I had walked away, and I said to my wife, I said, I don't think people would respect me if I bought those. And she goes, it started home. I would not. And she's like, this is ridiculous. And I was just like, okay, very good. We all confirmed, because it just, I don't know. And I don't know if it's the flavors and shit that threw me off, or it was just the concept of the whole thing.
It's I don't know. It's like so.
It feels like filling a cannoli like 3 days before you actually serve it, and that's fucked up.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, fill the cannoli, serve the cannoli. Right?
Totally. I went Italian too. I don't know. I went to something. I was just like, it feels like it's just not right, like you got it
without the stuffing. You know what I mean? Whatever, they've been sitting there for a day. Whatever. Yeah, no, I'm with you. So when you start to see this whole thing kind of develop in your brain, how do you get to RollPros? Like, what is your first sort of opportunity to say, look, I'm putting the engineering brain on, I'm putting the pothead brain on, and we're going to solve this sort of pre-roll issue? What was the initial issue that you were trying to solve, I guess, is where we'll start.
Yeah. Well, so the initial issue was that it was like
the pulverization. Was that your point with the earlier piece?
Yep.
The way that people had to bastardize their weed. I even feel bad grinding my weed, to be honest with you, sometimes.
Yeah.
But it smokes. But anyways, it doesn't matter. But the point is, so okay, that's what you meant, was that you were saying that the problem was what you have to do to get here was the problem you saw, not the machines or whatever people use. It was that, hey, this is what you have to do to get here, and I don't like that. What do you do to fix it?
And I don't hold anything against people filling cones. Like I need to say that, because like it's a means to an end, and like it's a really cheap entry point. So I get that. But like when I saw people like, drying out their flower, like that was it. I'm just like, you want the moisture content, because that, if it's dry, it's hot, burns your throat, tastes like shit. And so you want to preserve moisture content. That's why you always keep your nugs in a nug jug, like you keep it sealed always.
Yep.
And so that was the main thing. And I saw, I went down the tobacco rabbit hole, I saw those machines, and I'm like, they too, you got to dry it out. So it's like everything to fill a cone or run a cigarette style machine is you got to dry it out. And I was like, that's like the last thing I want to do in a joint that I smoke. And so I just started down that rabbit hole. And I remember, those belt style rollers or rolling a joint with a dollar bill. I really liked that. I didn't use them because I was all about my hands, but like I remembered liking the ability to like roll and tighten it while I'm rolling.
Yeah,
And
again, that
so,
was the only way I rolled joints when we went,
yeah,
when we traveled the world, me and my wife, whatever we go to, I make sure I have that in my bag so I can
yeah,
just take whatever's local, crank it, crash it, and move it on, right? And so, yeah,
yeah,
I mean, and it looks like you smoke tobacco and no one thinks the wiser, and,
yeah,
it passes all the sniff tests. So I like those as well.
yeah,
And it's interesting you talk about the moisture content because we were in Jamaica. This dude rolls up and just drops off it was like a stalk, like this. And the thing was almost like dripping wet. And I'm like, okay, this isn't going to work for what I like. I'm not going to be able to even put a lighter to this, so I had to dry it out for
yeah.
a little bit. But so you see this problem, you go to fix it. How do you end up with your version of all the other things that you saw?
Yeah, so the first thing is I don't really follow standards, like I'm kind of similar to you where I'm like, if somebody tells me something, I'm like, all right, well, thank you for your opinion, but I'm going to do it how I think it should be done.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
so I assessed the different directions that everybody was kind of going, which it was cone fillers is basically it. And I went my other route, and I was like, okay, I liked this belt style roller, so I like using a belt to tighten it, and so you're mechanically rolling the joint, and you can mechanically tighten it. So I liked that, and I made my first prototype. It was all by hand and 3D printed, and I rolled up the first joint on it, and it popped out this perfect joint that looked like that. And I was like, "Holy shit! I think I got something," and and then I just like I went hard, I started with added a couple stepper motors in, so now it's like moving, it's rolling it, and then I added in like the feed part was the hardest part, was finding a way to like feed really fresh sticky flower. Was the hardest part. Like the rolling aspect of it was actually like pretty easy. I think I had that nailed pretty early on. And then it was like, yeah, how do I feed this like really sticky? You've had the stuff where it's like it's on your fingers. You're like, how the like so it was just kind of tackling one problem after another. And after doing that for about a year, I was also working, full time. So it was just like a side gig. But once I kind of had it all figured out, uh, yeah, I started rolling for the CBD hemp guys when that was big back in 2020. And yeah, 2021, I sold my first machine, and I was in the garage, and I was like, shit, I guess I got to quit my job. So I quit my job, and I had like three small kids at the time. It was middle of COVID. It was like, oh my gosh, it was nuts. But
Well,
yeah,
that's when things are born, though, right? Out of pressure comes diamonds, and you see that you take a launch point at a very interesting point in the world. I remember thinking that when I had designed my company, I designed it because being in automotive, I've been through multiple recessions in my life, and so I wanted to build my company recession proof. I wanted to have no expense. I wanted to have no reason to be. I mean, we were working from home before it was cool because I hate expense. And so when looking at things and trying to make sure I could survive it, when COVID came, I thought, and we survived, actually grew during COVID. I thought, shit, I didn't plan on that. I didn't know that we'd be able to beat this out. You take a chance, you start a company that's 2021, you said, or 22 did you start?
it was 2020 actually when I quit my job. It was September 4th of 2020. I'm coming up on 5 years. Yeah.
That's wild, man. I mean, you're 5 months into COVID, like it was
Yeah.
official. My wife and I were coming back on the leap year day of February 29th from California, and we were in the airports. It was crazy, insane.
Yeah.
And so I remember that. I remember that feeling. So you do this in 2020. You're 5 years in. What's next? You figure out this part of it. You get this in. what's the biggest thing on your project list right now that you've either launched or that you're looking to launch? Like what's Kyle's next step there?
Well, yeah, so we just launched the blunt machine. So that's, it's just adding a
Look at
little
that.
bit of like tailored, this label gets rolled right into the machine. The tip, you can extend it, you can do a wood tip. This is a glass tip. You can do,
I love a good glass tip. I got a
I
bunch
know.
of the reusable ones to just poke in there. My wife's
Yeah.
kind of made me a snob on that. I didn't really like it at first, and she kept asking for it. Now I'm like, damn, I do like this. I like
Dude,
the glass
that's
tip.
so funny. I tell the same story. My wife, like, I brought some glass tip ones home. She's like, I don't ever want to smoke anything but this. I'm like,
Yeah.
okay.
So then I
I'm
like start
spoiling
calling my
her.
buddies. I'm like, hey, and they're like, dude, we'll send you reusable ones. I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
okay, cool. Like I'm
Yeah.
trying to figure out where to go, how to get it, like where do we get it? And so my buddy, they run the brand Lobo, and they have a glass tip Canager, and it's one of my favorites because it feels like a cigar, right? The
Yeah.
blunt, that sort of feeling. So Blackbird XXL, I believe,
Yeah.
is the name of this machine.
Yep.
Still using the sticky weed, all that's the same. Just all that changed was scale for you. That was it, size wise.
Yeah. Just bigger, like 1.25 grams up to 2.5. And it unlocked a lot of cool features that we're gonna back introduce onto the Blackbird. So we're kind of like we're getting into this area now where people want to have like a super custom joint. Like they don't want it to just look like everybody's joint. They
Yeah.
want to have, like this is like a super long crutch. They want like a super long crutch. They want a glass tip. They want a band, and so we're kind of starting to like entertain getting, just getting outside of the box, and
Kyle,
kind of
does
making more
infusion play
custom.
into your game at this point, or is it straight roll? What does that portion look like in your world?
Oh yeah, yeah. We run infused all the time. Because I design it for like really sticky material, it runs really well. So it's like, you infuse your material, so it's like you have a nice homogenized blend of either like, bubble hash or keef or THCA diamonds or, oil distillate. And yeah, we have a lot of people that run that. And I mean, I'm also looking at like kind of my holy grail is like the hash hole. So I have like a way to set up firmware so like I can run like a few, but I want to turn that on so my customers can actually like fully automate like cold cure hash holes.
The future for Kyle is the hash hole. The holy grail of cannabis manufacturing, MFG, is all for Kyle. I love it, dude. That's awesome. That's awesome. Look, you've been generous with your time. We like to wrap the show up with what we call the hot hits. The hot hits, if anyone was wondering, is brought to you by Green Lane Communication. Look, bold media placement, thought leadership that turns heads, that's Green Lane Communication. That's what they do. If you're not familiar with them, head over to greenlanecommunication.com, learn about them. If you don't know Mikey and his team, get to know them. They're all over LinkedIn. He gives you PR tips for free. If you don't follow him, you should already do that. He's just trying to help people be more professional in a world where maybe they don't feel like they have to be. But I want to remind everyone, I love cannabis, but it is still a fucking business.
Yeah.
Please remember that. This is not some side affair for people. This is a business. There is money that needs to be made to keep lights on. It's how it works. Kyle, here we go. The 3 quick hits. Give us your quick answer on this. I had a question down. It's not going to be fair to ask you your favorite pre-roll brand because you have clients. So I'm going to ask you, what is your favorite pre-roll style? As you spoke to, people like things different. So do you like a dog walker? Do you like a cone? Like where does Kyle go in his world?
Yeah, I mean, I like a 1 gram glass tip, just a chonker, like that's
I
my
like that too.
go-to.
That looks very cool.
Yeah.
I dig that. I enjoy that. Are you infuse or not to infuse for you personally, Kyle?
Yeah, I don't really need it. I'm kind of like, I got my mind blown, by some like outdoor that I had down in Mendocino County. And I'm like actually kind of moving from indoor to like now I'm like, looking at different outdoors. So I'm actually moving down in my potency, but I'm moving up in my like terpene profiles.
It's so interesting, man. Humble Family Farms, I believe, is their name. And Scott and his crew over there, and D and those
I
guys.
know them.
I follow them, right? I watch what they do, and I think to myself, growing up in the Midwest, I'm positive we got that because that was our chain, right, to get into where we were as legacy distributors that we are. And so we knew that was the chain, but I didn't know then about the outdoor indoor portion of it. I would much rather go the outdoor route of something flavorful, something less, I don't know, like just forced, and not forced, but like it's natural what goes on out there. So to hear you say there is a flavor difference is awesome because I feel myself with my 30-year relationship with cannabis, I'm shifting away from trying to get my mind blown because it's been long enough. And I'm just trying to be more in the space that I'm in. You know what I mean? Occupy that space
Totally.
as opposed to trying to figure out where the next galaxy is, if that makes sense.
Totally makes sense. Yeah.
You know what I mean? All right, last question. You may have sort of answered it, but here it is. The future of pre-rolls. I know you're holy grail, but where do you see this evolution? How many more things can we do and talk about when it comes to joints that we haven't already done, man?
I think as the consumer gets more experienced and more educated, I think that there's going to be like a slow rise in like pre-rolls. Just like, and I think it's going to be people that are like originally they're buying flour and they're, rolling a joint, or they're buying flour and like hitting a bong.
Yeah.
So I think that there's going to be this split where people are going to build trust in their brands and in their joints, that they're going to start moving away from flour and have this like, connoisseur pack of joints that they're like, that this is what I go to. I know the flour and it's good. I know the grower. I know I'm going to get a good experience here. I think that's kind of the future. And then there's always going to be like the bottom dollar pre-roll, like people that just want to get high for $1. And I think that that's going to be just like the shift, and yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that with the dollar part because I always walk into these dispensaries and I'm a marketing kid by mindset. So when I walk in and I'm looking at things, I'm like, what is this? And this doesn't make any sense. And why is that here? And then it's like, oh, the giveaway, go over here and get your dollar. Like to immediately assume someone's financial interest in their purchase at the gate is always unsettling to me. I don't really like being told about discounts and deals. You want to put up on a board, you want to have it somewhere, that's fine. But I don't think you need to lead with it, and I think that's what happens with these markets, and people don't understand. Again, as you said earlier in the show, this is still brand new, man. This is still all so brand new, and we're all learning as we go. Again, I still live in one of 9, 10 states that has nothing on the books outside of the Farm Bill. And that just confuses consumers. And I don't have time for that right now, Kyle. And you don't need to sit and listen to me bitch about how consumers are confused by all this nonsense while everyone's making a money grab. I just had a buddy yesterday text me a picture of his favorite THC drink that he bought at the local grocery store here in Wisconsin. I'm like, what's in it? He's like, there's no label. I'm like, sweet, dude. That is the best. Like, he's like, but I'm buzzed. I'm like, sure, that's fine. Like, you know how many ways there are to get there? So anyways, Kyle, man, you've been awesome with your time. Your story is so cool. I love listening to guys like you that are using, that sort of huge college backing, that engineering, that real dissection of life, taking it and applying it to something that they enjoy. And, it to me seems like, and I've met you now today, I've known you 39 minutes. It seems to me that you're probably in the happiest role of your working career that you have been ever, would be my guess.
Oh my gosh. Everybody is like this. I freaking love this industry. Yeah. Like I do. Like everybody that works for me loves it. Like you go to trade shows, like it's great. Everybody's happy, having a good time. Like, and if anybody's been in any other industry and gone to a trade show, They're horrific.
They're
And
horrific.
now,
I stopped going to automotive trade shows. I actually throw my own here in Wisconsin every year because I know what's cool, because I do shit better, Kyle. So I throw a show. I do that. I put my money where my mouth is. And we've only been doing it a couple of years, but we ain't stopping. We're just getting going. We're figuring out what works, what doesn't. So yeah, dude, to have it. And we've been to some industry shows, and you're looking at exactly how I walk through an industry show. And people are like, oh, what's this and what's that? You just have all these natural conversations. When I go to automotive conferences, people turn their badge around. They don't want anyone to know who anyone is. They don't want anyone to know what this is. And it's totally different. And again, yeah, a lot of car guys, we go outside, smoke weed, 2 of those conferences, but a weed conference is different for sure, man. So I like that you say that. Kyle, thanks a lot for sharing your time, sharing your story. It was really very cool of that. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, Sean. I'm looking forward to the next time.
Yeah, it'll be awesome. I really appreciate it. There will be a next time. We love great guests. We like to bring them back. As always, we like to thank Green Lane Communication, Mikey and his team. Nobody helps you stand out better. If you want to outgrow your competition, own your narrative, partner with Green Lane Communication. And that starts by visiting greenlanecommunication.com. In case you missed it, here it is one more time on the screen, greenlanecommunication.com. Kyle, thanks a lot, folks. We love it. Thank you. Remember, the goal here, uplift the plant, remove the stigma. That's always the goal. And whether you remove the stigma or uplift the plant, I don't care what you say. We just want to do it. Thank you so much. Have a great week.